Good evening and welcome to another edition of Sports Hour. I am Kevin Syracuse with Dante Lasting, our NFL analyst, and like we usually do, we'll start with some Fredonia sports and then we'll get into the NFL portion of this segment. So first things first, the Fredonia State men were 26 out of 39 teams in the men's cross-country varsity division of the Oberlin College Interregional Rumble on Saturday. With only 4 runners entered, the Fredonia State women recorded an incomplete score. Blue Devil senior Aiden Pollard finished first for his team again with a time of 26 minutes and 1.21 seconds for the 8,000 meters. He finished 77th overall in a race which drew 339 runners. The women's volleyball team lost 3-0 to Cortland Friday and 3-0 to Oswego on Saturday. The women are now 8-15 on the year and 1-6 in conference play, and next play up north in Potsdam Friday and Plattsburgh Saturday. The men's soccer team lost 3-2 to Buff State Saturday in Buffalo. With the Devils down 3-0, sophomore Matt Cullen scored goals in the 68th and 71st minutes to pull Fredonia within a goal, but they cannot muster another offensive attack after that. The loss drops Fredonia to 1-4-2 in SUNYAC play and 5-7-4 overall. They will close out the regular season this weekend at home as they host Oswego on Friday and Cortland Saturday. On the other hand, the women's soccer team beat Buff State 1-0 on Saturday in Fredonia. Freshman Gabby Alston scored in the 13th minute of the game, and that was all the Blue Devils needed as they moved to 2-3-2 in conference play and 5-8-2 overall. They close out the regular season next weekend as well as they play at Oswego Friday and at Cortland Saturday. So there is your roundup of Fredonia sports, and I can't believe it, but winter sports have already begun too, Dante.
Yeah, it's insane. This semester is really flying by.
Yeah, first hockey game is in 2 Fridays, November 1st. So
Exciting times.
What is this, the 9th week of the semester?
I think so, yeah.
Jeez. It's flying by, and that also means that NFL season is flying by.
It really is. This week is the halfway point of the season, and it's crazy that it's already there.
Yeah, I still can't believe it. I mean, today was a beautiful day, so we
know.
still have warm weather. But at the same time, November is right around the corner.
Definitely.
So, getting to some game action here. Again, thank you to Dante for coming up with these graphics. As you've seen the last couple of weeks, we've had some graphics here. And the first game that we're going to talk about, Indianapolis and Houston. The Colts took this one 30-23.
The Colts are playing really good. Before their bye, they beat the Chiefs, which kind of went unnoticed, and they had the bye, so the NFL community kind of forgot about them. But Jacoby Brissett had a great game, and you can really see that this team could be fighting for a wild card spot in late December. They have 3 easy games coming up, Pittsburgh, Miami, and Jacksonville, so they can bolster their record and get some wins.
Yeah. When Andrew Luck announced his retirement at the beginning of the year, that kind of threw off everything with the Colts because Luck was one of the best in the league. And when something sudden like that happens, your first thought is, oh my gosh, the Colts are going to be terrible now. Like the quarterback's the main guy. But I think a lot of people forget how good Jacoby Brissett, I don't want to say is because I don't know if he's there yet, but I think he can be really good. And the Colts have a really solid team around him, and that helps a lot.
Definitely. And the biggest thing that the Colts have going for them is their head coach. Frank Reich has done a really great job in the 2 years that he's been there. And it's shown. They went to the playoffs last year, and they probably will this year too.
Yeah, so Colts just a good team win. They're 4-2 now. Houston's 4-3. I think it'll be between those 2 teams for the AFC South. Tennessee, they have too many questions with Mariota and Tannehill.
Definitely.
And Jacksonville is just kind of all over the place, although Nick Foles is close to returning.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to come down to Indianapolis and Houston in the AFC South.
I think so, and I think the team that doesn't gets the wild card spot, the either 5th or 6th. Depending on what happens down the season. But the Texans, they've been good. They beat the Chiefs as well, but they have been their cornerback position has just been injured. So earlier today, they traded for Garyon Conley from the Raiders. They traded a 3rd-round pick, and he's a former 1st-round pick, so hopefully that they can get some help. And the Texans actually play the Raiders next week. It's kind of funny.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So.
And the Raiders are coming off a big loss to the Packers, a game in which Aaron Rodgers was perfect, had a perfect passer rating of 158.3, and the Packers took this one 42-24.
Yeah, the Packers are scary this year. They have a new head coach, and they're the best team. Could be in the NFL, maybe in the NFC, but they can really because they're definitely going to the playoffs. When they go to the playoffs, they will definitely do some damage. But Derek Carr, he fumbled out of the end zone again. He did it again. He did it last season, and he did it again this game in the second quarter. And he also had a bad end zone interception, which ultimately cost him the game.
Yeah, the Packers, I mean, they totally revamped that defense in the offseason. They went from having not one of the worst, but they were in that bottom tier of defenses, and now they're in the top.
Definitely.
I mean, they really revamped that defense and through the draft and free agency, and they're 6-1 now. And when you have a healthy Aaron Rodgers, that's a dangerous combination.
It really is. They got their new defensive coordinator, Mike Pettin, and he's just, with all the weapons that he has, he's just been able to shine, and that defense has been really good.
So yeah, the Packers moved to 6-1 now. The Raiders are, is it 3-3?
3-4.
3-4. See, now we're getting to the point where I can't remember
Yep.
records because I don't know. I can't remember who's been on the bye and who hasn't. But okay, so the Raiders are now 3-4, and they will be playing the Texans next week. So sticking with the NFC North, the Vikings and the Lions. This was a good game, but the Vikings improved to 5-2, and they pulled this one out at the end, and they took this one 42-30.
This was a crazy game. It was tied 21-21 at halftime, but after that, the Vikings really stayed hot. Kirk Cousins was 24-34 for 337 yards and 4 touchdowns. Stephon Diggs had 7 receptions for 142 yards, which
He's coming alive now.
he really is these past 2 weeks. He's done a great job. And Dalvin Cook, 25 rushes, 142 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He is a young player that is going to do well for many years to come.
I was looking at the leading rushers and, just the leaders in every category
Yes.
this year, and I was so shocked. Dalvin Cook already has 725 yards this year.
Yep.
That's through 7 games.
Exactly.
I don't know if exactly, but roughly, I think he's on pace for like 2,000 right now.
Definitely. And he just passed Christian McCaffrey because he had to bye. But he's definitely, those are the top 2. Him and Christian McCaffrey are definitely the top 2 running backs in the league.
And Leonard Fournette, too.
Definitely. But you could see that he helps them win games. If they just had any run-of-the-mill running back, then I don't think they'd be as good as they are.
Yeah, actually, he's not on pace for 2,000. He'd be a few hundred short, 7 games, 16. So
That's true.
but he's on pace to have a great
Definitely.
year.
And on the other side, the Lions lost the game, but Matt Stafford, 364 yards, 4 touchdowns and a pick. Marvin Jones, 10 receptions, 93 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He had all 4 touchdowns.
I was so shocked when I saw that.
So was I. Go ahead. Okay.
You.
No, but it's just crazy. You rarely see a quarterback throw 4 touchdowns and a 1 wide receiver catching all of them.
Yeah, and what I was going to say was Marvin Jones, it seems like every year he starts out really slow, like decent, like 40, 50-yard games, and then all of a sudden week 7, week 8 comes around, and he goes off. Like, I think last year he had a 200-yard game. This year he has a 4-touchdown game.
Yep.
And then halfway through the year, he starts going nuts, and then everyone picks him up on fantasy, and then he kind of fizzles out towards the end of the year, but he's I don't know how to describe it. It's just kind of weird. He's really good, but he's kind of inconsistent in a way.
Definitely. He does have those big games that for fantasy, it'll drive people to go get him, but then for the rest of the season, he won't produce that type of numbers.
So once again, the Vikings took this one 42-30. It was a good game. It wasn't close or anything, but 2 good teams, Ravens, Seahawks. Baltimore took this one 30-16.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson ran for over 100 again.
He showed up. He is proving all the doubters wrong. All the other 31 teams that let him slide through the draft. He really is playing well this season, and it goes back to last season when he brought that team to the playoffs. Marcus Peters had a pick 6. He played well against an old rival, the Seahawks, because he just got traded from the Rams to the Ravens. But Yeah, the Ravens are playing really good. I think they're going to lock up that division. I don't see the Bengals, the Steelers, or the Browns taking it. Browns maybe. It depends how they come back from their bye. But I really think that this is the Ravens' division. And Lamar Jackson has more rushing yards than 7 NFL teams. He has 576 rushing yards, which is more than 7 NFL teams, which is a crazy stat.
Crazy. And the funny thing is, he was only 9 of 20 passing for 143 yards. And last year and going into this year, everyone was getting on him for, oh, he's a run first QB. And now it's kind of like everyone's like, they're loving that he's running so much and getting so many yards. It's kind of like they reverse, like the narrative kind of changed with Lamar Jackson. And all of a sudden, everyone loves that he picks up over 100 yards because a few weeks ago, everyone was getting on him.
Definitely.
It's kind of weird, you know?
Yeah, the critics in the NFL are weird. They definitely swap their positions on things. But you can't take away that he is playing at a high level. And for him to go into Seattle and come out with a win, it's incredible.
I think the main difference between going into this season and now is that they're winning. If he was running so much and they weren't winning,
Definitely.
they would be all over him. But because he's able to get the W every week, well, not every week, but they are 5-2.
Yes.
Then they're like, okay, we're okay with him running. So.
And the Seahawks, they're 5-2. They should have won this game. They had opportunities, but they fall to 5-2. But they have a good bounce back game against the 1-6 Falcons, and they're not looking good at all. They had a bad game against the Rams. The Rams won 37-10, and it was a get right game for the Rams, and they did it. They showed up and they showed out.
Now, Jalen Ramsey, if you didn't already hear, he was traded to the Rams earlier this week, which is why they traded Peters to the Ravens. So
Yes.
Did Ramsey play? Did he make his debut? Okay.
Yes, he had a forced fumble.
Oh, okay.
Yep, he made his impact. He covered Julio Jones the whole game. And I don't know the stats for Julio Jones, but the Falcons only scored 10 points. So the whole Falcons team is really struggling this year. I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know if it's players. I know Matt Ryan got injured. He left the game in the fourth quarter with an ankle injury. But I really don't know. It's just it's a lost season for the Falcons, and it's a shame because they do have a lot of talented players on that team.
Yeah, and they are 1-6. 6? Yeah,
Yep.
1-6 now. So yeah, it's kind of a lost season for them.
Yes.
So last game we have here, Eagles, Cowboys, Sunday Night Football. Eagles took this one by a lot, 37.
Cowboys took it.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
I'm so sorry. Yeah. But yes, the Cowboys.
I didn't think before I read that our script says 37, but yeah, the Cowboys took this one 37-10.
Yeah, the Cowboys, they ran all over the Eagles. 402 yards they had on offense, the Cowboys did. And really they pounded the rock and they got the win. The Eagles had four turnovers, an interception, and 3 fumbles. And the Eagles just struggle to stay healthy. Their secondary's depleted, and they just aren't that good of a team this year.
Yeah, I mean, looking at their injury report here, these are the players that were out last night. Nigel Bradham, Deshaun Jackson, Tim Jernigan, Avonte Maddox, Jason Peters, and Darren Sproles. And Ronald Darby has been banged up too.
Yes.
So it seems like every year the Eagles are just decimated with injuries.
They really are. They had that good Super Bowl run, but after that, these past 2 years, they really have been decimated by injuries. They can't stop opposing offenses, and their offense can't stay on the field, so that's not a success for winning.
A couple minutes left in this segment, so perfect segue to talk about my Bills because the Eagles come to town next week.
They do.
And the Bills are now 5-1.
The Bills are 5-1.
This, by no means is it going to be an easy game. The Eagles are still very, very good. I mean, they won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They have many of those players still on the team. And I think it's because of those injuries why they haven't been able to get in the win column as much.
Definitely. And the Bills have a chance. There's holes in that team where the Bills they have opportunities to make plays and score. But as we all saw this week, it was the same with the Dolphins. The Dolphins are worse than the Eagles, but they still ran the ball well and had some big plays against the Bills, and you usually don't see that.
Yeah, we talked about this on our show last night. Dante and I also have a Bills postgame show on Fredonia Radio, so listen to that on Sunday nights at 8. But Yeah, we talked about this last night, how the Bills haven't played a full 60 minutes yet. Against the
Definitely.
Jets, they were down 16-0. Against the Giants, they were down 7-0 and then started coming together. The Bengals, they had that lull in the third quarter. Same with the Titans. I mean, and then yesterday, they pretty much won in the last 20 minutes. They were down 14-9.
They really did.
And they
didn't-
scored 22 points in the fourth quarter.
They had their bye week, and they still didn't show up to the game until the end of the third
The
quarter.
bye week blues.
Yeah, but it's good that we still got the win, and we are still making these mistakes. But to be 5-1, it's a great thing.
Yeah, but if you want to beat the Eagles, like I said, they're better than their record shows. You need to play a full 60 minutes.
Definitely, you got to prepare this week. You got to buckle down, and I think they can get the win.
Yeah, hey, a win's a win. The Bills are 5-1, second in the AFC. And then one last game tonight, Patriots, Jets kicking off right about now. So that should be a good one now that Sam Darnold's back. So thanks for coming on, Dante.
Of course.
And Mac will be on to talk some baseball as the World Series is already tomorrow night.
I'll be right back. Hi. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
It's me, Artie. Come see what I collected from the Creative Galaxy in my idea box.
Transform your world.
Will you help me make art?
Before you throw it away,
Hey, I have an idea.
think outside the box.
Go be amazing!
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
Happy to have Mac Clune back with us for the MLB segment. And Mac, the World Series is already tomorrow night.
Yep. It's been a quick season. Quick postseason, really.
Yeah, and one team that everyone, ourselves included, is there that we thought, the Astros, and the other team, I don't know if anyone had this team in the World Series, the Washington Nationals.
We got half the bracket right. I don't know how we could have gotten the other half of the bracket right. So, and they won it in crazy fashion. They swept St. Louis, who looked like they didn't even want to play baseball. So, what do you think about the series, Kevin?
It was just all Washington. I mean, they took the first two in St. Louis, and then you could just kind of feel that the momentum was already there. They're coming back to Washington for the next three. After they won, they took the first one 2-0. Anibal Sanchez got the win there. And then we talked about that last week, yeah, because that was a game he had the almost no-hitter. And then same thing in Game 2, Scherzer had another almost no-hitter, took that one deep too. So they took Game 1 2-0, Game 2 3-1, come back to Washington 8-1, and then you really knew it was all over there. The Cardinals put up a fight in Game 4, but the Nats were just way too good.
Yep, those last two games weren't really that close. The big thing with this series was really just the starting pitching, and it's something really interesting because both of these teams now, we're looking at them And the two teams that are in the World Series are the two teams that have consistently had pitchers that can go deep into games. So it was interesting because I remember last week you told me, you said, is baseball too analytical? Are they taking the pitchers in and out too much? And now we can see the two World Series teams are the teams that had pitchers that can go 7 innings, 6 innings, and get all those strikeouts.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So St. Louis in this series, they really just didn't come to play. They were like dropping balls, easy routine fly outs. And it just kind of felt like the Nationals had it after St. Louis just kind of rolled over, really.
Yeah, I want to go back to that point you made because we saw that a lot with the Yankees when Boone took out Chad Green in Game 2. And that, I don't want to say it was a series changer, but it definitely, I mean, the Astros took the game and then they won the next 2 after that.
And
so
they won when the Yankees, everybody thought that they were done, but to quickly go on it, James Paxton, who pitched for Game 5, was their bounce back win. It was the game that they were able to get back into, and James Paxton went 6 innings. So it was really, this postseason has just been all about the pitchers that can go deep and get those strikeouts and keep rolling.
Yeah, before we switch over to the ALCS, one more thing about the NLCS, just to go along with what you were saying, the Nationals, they have a 3-headed monster too, just like the Astros.
Yeah, totally. Their pitching lineup, this is going to be an amazing World Series. Anibal Sanchez went 7 innings in Game 1. Scherzer went 7 innings again in Game 2 with 11 strikeouts. And Strasburg in Game 3 had a better game than any of those guys. And those are amazing games. 7 innings pitched, 12 strikeouts. So they have just as good of a 3-headed monster as the Astros would at this
And
point.
Patrick Corbin too.
Yeah, and Patrick Corbin too.
So, yes.
Sean Doolittle is their closer. They just have good pitching all around.
Yeah. So I like how you brought that up because, like we were saying, it's gotten so analytical now. We saw it with the Yankees, the Dodgers, a lot of teams, not just in the playoffs, throughout the year too, taking out their pitchers and managers trying to outthink the game. And in a lot of times it comes back to bite them.
Yep.
So these are two teams that have really good starting pitchers that can go deep into the game. So it's going to be fun to watch.
Just real quick, the NLCS MVP was Howie Kendrick, who he put up, I think, a 344 average. He had that 3-double game. He was really good on a team. It was kind of a weird MVP just because there was nobody that really stood out super hard. The pitchers only pitched 1 game, but Howie Kendrick, I think, was consistently their best bat throughout the 4-game series.
Howie Kendrick, I forgot he was still playing, to be honest, because he was acquired by Washington in 2017. He was out all of last year with an injury, comes back this year, and I think he hit like 345 in the regular season and did the same thing in the postseason so far, and he's been great.
Another point with the Nationals is just that what's really happened is this is a team that they've never won a postseason series before this postseason. Never once. This is the first time winning a season series. So generally what's happened with them is that they've ended up being injured and they haven't had all of their pitching arms. And this is what happens when this team is all here in full strength and they can all really contribute. They have a lot of really dangerous bats too. You have Anthony Rendon, Trey Turner.
He's been tearing it up.
Howie Kendrick.
Juan Soto.
Juan Soto. That guy's like 22. He's going to be dominating the division for years to come. And it really does just feel like this team came out of nowhere, all the way from the wild card spot, to knock out the Dodgers, who were the favorites, and then St. Louis, who just beat the Braves in dominant fashion. So I really think they've earned their spot, and it's going to be a crazy World Series.
It's kind of funny. Do you think, well, yeah, I mean, that was pretty much the play that got him there with Trent Grisham when he misplayed that ball in right field and the Nationals took the wild card. If that happened, Milwaukee probably would have won, and this could totally be different right now.
Yeah. And coming back in Game 7 to win it on that grand slam from Howie Kendrick against the Dodgers, like, totally crazy that they've made this run. I think that they're more than deserving of their spot.
This is the type of run that ends with the World Series ring. It seems like they can't lose right now because they've had so much going for them, and it's like such like a storybook ending, I feel like. But it's going to be tough because the Houston Astros are just so dominant. We've been talking about them all semester. And my Yankees are done. 4-2, they took the series. Yanks put up a fight, but Houston was just a better team, I'll admit. They're just so good this year.
Best team in baseball. They won. They took the series 3-2. Game 1, the Yankees won Game 1, but after that, the Astros took off 3 in a row. The Yankees did have some life in them when they came back in Game 5, but they eventually lost off a walk-off home run from Jose Altuve in Game 6.
Yeah, it is just so hard to watch because
That was a tough game for a Yankee fan to watch, like totally. They came back because DJ LeMahieu hit that home run in the top of the 9th. So it was 4-2 going into the top of the 9th. They had Correa on the mound, so it was a lockdown closer. And
Wait, Correa. Chapman.
Not Chapman. The Astros had Correa, and the Yankees have Chapman, and he was going into the inning. Oh no, Osuna. They had a
Yeah, I was gonna say wait, Correa. What?
Yeah, sorry. They had Osuna in going into the top of the 9th. He gives up the 2-run home run to DJ LeMahieu with 2 outs. And suddenly the Yankees have life. They're looking to go into a Game 7. They can take the series home. But then the bottom of the 9th happened, and it didn't quite work out that way.
Yeah, it was just such a heartbreaking game because they're down 4-2 in the 9th inning. All the momentum was on Houston's side. Roberto Osuna is one of the best closers in the game. He's only 24, and he's usually lights out. But DJ LeMahieu, I can't stop praising this guy enough because he's been so good this year. And I think it was like a 9 or 10 pitch at bat. And he took that outside pitch to right field. And it was so awesome.
Yep.
But I had a bad feeling. I told my friend, we're watching the game together, 7th inning, I said, you watch the Yankees come back to tie this, and Chapman's going to blow it. Because I feel like in pressure situations, he lets the crowd get to him on the road, and he doesn't deliver a lot of the times.
Yep.
And what happened?
You could see-
Chapman gave up the winning home run.
You could see it in the at-bat. He was starting to lose control of his fastball, and he threw a changeup, and he just hung it. He was trying to get it into the dirt, and he hung it, and Altuve is not going to let you get away with that pitch. And he crushed that ball. That was a ridiculous home run.
It's more, on that, it was more that it was just a great hit by Altuve instead of a bad pitch from Chapman. I mean, that was a backdoor curve or change, I don't even know, but it was on the outside corner, high and outside, and he pulled it to left center field. And Jose Altuve is just so good.
Yep, MVP of the series. He's been their best player, and he's been a player that's really, I think, delivered for the Astros. The Yankees, like people like DJ LeMahieu, have delivered. Gleyber Torres has been good in the series. Gary Sanchez has been solid. But they've just had some people that haven't been able to get it done, like Edwin Encarnacion, who's just been completely useless in the entire series. That was an interesting thing with this series, was the DH was, I think, 2 for 50 the entire series. Yordan Alvarez and Edwin Encarnacion just could not get a hit to save their lives.
And Stanton, too. He was out with the quad injury. And Encarnacion's parrot was stuck in the cage.
Yeah, he did not get it done. It was not a good series for either DH.
Now, real quick before we end here, Didi Gregorius is a free agent coming into this year. If you're the Yankees, do you make Gleyber Torres your full-time shortstop, move LeMahieu back to second, his natural position, and let Luke Voit play first and move on from Didi, or do you re-sign him?
I think you take Didi. I think you got to keep Gleyber and keep him happy is the number one thing, because he's 22 years old and that guy's going to be a superstar. This postseason has proved it like more than anything else.
I'm almost leaning towards letting Didi walk and make Gleyber your franchise shortstop, because I mean the shortstop's the captain of the infield, and he's going to go down as one of the Yankee greats, I think. And I feel like now's the time. You insert him as your shortstop, make him the true leader of this team. Let LeMahieu go back to second. Voit, another power back, comes back to first. I don't know. The Yankees have a lot of decisions coming up because they need a lot of pitching, and they got to find some clutch hitters too, because the Yankees could not get any timely hitting.
They need defense, and one of their big problems this series was just leaving people on base. The Astros were not giving them that opportunity. When the Astros had people in scoring position, they brought them home, and that's why they won the series. And really, at the end of the day, I just think the better team won in this series. I think that the Astros just they showed the glove. They had all those amazing double plays in Game 6. They capitalized on runners in scoring position when they needed to, and I think that they definitely deserve to take home the series.
Yeah, so Game 1 of the World Series, tomorrow night, Garrett Cole against Max Scherzer. And that's just going to be.
This is such a good pitching. Like there's three
two of the
games
best in the game.
There's 3 games in a row where it's just like 2 of the best pitchers in the game going at each other. It's going to be, well, it's baseball and nothing makes sense. So, the end run totals are going to be like 10-8, 11-12 or something like that. But we'll see.
Yeah, so game 1 is Cole and Scherzer, and then game 2 is Verlander and Strasburg. So those 4 are arguably the top 4 in the game right now, pitching. So,
and you look at it, and it's just crazy that the Nationals, who are a team that are coming from the wild card, and you look at them in the World Series, and you realize that they're dangerous. They really do have a chance, to take it home. I think that they match up well against the Astros, and I think that this is like a pretty even series going into the World Series.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention, the Nationals were 19-31 to start the season, and they came back and went on a tear. So if they didn't have that for the first 50 games, that rocky start, I think they definitely could have won the NL East, and a lot of people would have given them more recognition. But because of that slow start, they found themselves in the wild card, and people, they're a surprising story now because they came from the wild card. How many wins do they have in the regular season? I know they weren't over 100, but
they were 89, 91.
Yeah, somewhere around 90, so nothing special. And here they are in the World Series.
Yep, and they have $300 extra million they didn't spend on Bryce Harper that I'm sure that they're pretty happy about.
Yeah, I can't imagine what Bryce. He has $330 million, so he can't be that mad. But
I'm sure he's all right.
Deep down, he wishes he could still be playing. And one last thing, real quick, I saw a stat. We're talking about the pitching rotations, how they're arguably the best in the game.
They're the best if you look at the entire postseason chart, they're definitely the best 2 teams. They have the best pitching rotations, just straight up.
I don't remember the exact numbers, but their top 3 pitchers, so Cole, Verlander, and Greinke, and Scherzer, Strasburg, and Corbin, they count for $75 million in cap space. $75 million for each 3. So pitching and defense wins you titles, so we'll see. Should be a good series.
For sure.
Thanks for coming on, and Josh will be on next, talk some hockey.
I'll be right back. Hi. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
It's me, Artie. Come see what I collected from the Creative Galaxy in my idea box.
Transform your world.
Will you help me make art?
Before you throw it away,
Hey, I have an idea.
think outside the box.
Go be amazing!
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
Welcome back for the NHL segment now. Josh Schmidt joins us. And Josh, the Sabres are 7-1-1, which is good for 15 points and tied for first in the entire league.
Yeah, it's a really good time to be a Sabres fan. And we were talking about right before we came on, Carter Hutton gets the NHL's 3rd star of the week. He had two starts in the last in their road trip out to California. with 2 shutouts, 72 saves, and 47 of those saves coming in one game. He now has the franchise record of most saves in one game. He beat Chad Johnson, who had 44, and I think it was 2013. Second star of the week was John Carlson of the Washington Capitals with 1 goal, 7 assists, and 8 points with 1 game-winning goal. He's been on fire for the Capitals. He actually is tied for first or second in the league with points, and he's a defenseman, and a not too young defenseman at that. So that's really good for the Capitals. And the first star of the week was David Pastrnak. Pasta's been doing Pasta things in Boston. He had 7 goals, 2 assists, 9 points, and 4 of those goals were power play goals. So Boston's really cooking over there, and I think they're going to be a big threat for the Sabres coming up this season.
Yeah, so I want to talk more about the Sabres, but we'll save that for the end. So,
right. Some NHL news.
Okay. Yeah.
The New Jersey Devils have finally won a game. They are now 2-4-2 and are on a 2-game winning streak, now having beat the New York Rangers 5-2 and the Vancouver Canucks 1-0. Jack Hughes scored that 1 goal in the Vancouver Canucks game, scoring his first NHL goal finally. The first overall pick finally nets his first goal and gets the monkey off the back against his brother's team. So, that one will be a good talking point at the Thanksgiving dinner table for the Hughes family. But so New Jersey looks to hopefully be on the mend, but they got a long way to go, it looks like still.
Is Jack Hughes? He's been off to a bit of a slow start. Is that?
Mm-hmm. I think that's his first point too.
Yeah.
He hasn't had an assist, hasn't had a goal. That
wasn't really expected because he was like the next stud, right?
Right. Yeah, but I mean, some guys, they start off slow. Like we've seen with like Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, Austin Matthews, all these guys. You're expecting so much from these guys coming in, and they're only 18 years old. Like
they're younger than us,
right?
By 2 years,
right? You can't be expecting these guys to put up points. I mean, sure, Jack Eichel and Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews, they're doing what they do, but like you can't expect it from every first overall draft pick. But yeah, so I guess we could go into games of the week then with New Jersey. New Jersey was at the beginning of the week wasn't doing as good. They blew a four goal lead again to Florida. Florida won the game 6-4. They did what they've been doing all season. They got a sizable lead, 3 or more goals, and then they proceed to blow that lead. New Jersey was leading Panthers 4-1 into the second period, and the Panthers would go on to score 5 straight. The game tying goal 30 seconds into the third, and then what would be the game winner they scored 7 minutes later. So Florida's definitely off to a hot start, but New Jersey at that time was looking still a little shaky, but now we can see they've turned things around.
Yeah, so through 8 games, the Devils are 2-4-2, which is good for 6 points, so 4th from last in the Eastern Conference. So it's still early, but I think a lot of that rides on Jack Hughes because it seems like it's kind of, I don't know if it's his team now, but it's going to be.
Right.
So like
he's the next star, and with the signing of, I think it was Hischier, that's another up-and-coming name for the Devils that's going to be a good future product for them. But definitely they need to start taking control in New Jersey and start really producing for their team because they're the young stars of the future for that team. But to continue on, next game of the week was the Buffalo Sabres versus Los Angeles Kings. Buffalo had a 3-0 win in that one. We got to watch some Sabres after dark as they went out to the West Coast. Everyone in the Buffalo Sabres organization should owe that goaltender Carter Hutton a fancy dinner. This man played out of his mind that game. That was the game where he had 47 saves with the shutout. This is Hutton's second shutout of the season, and if the Sabres keep this chemistry, they're going to be very hard to stop. They really owe that game to Carter Hutton, though. I was pretty scared that third period. I was getting a little shaky, but LA put up a good fight. I mean, they're a good team. They're going to be good this year, I think. They'll probably be a wild card team in the West. But speaking of LA, that was my third game of the week. LA took on Calgary a couple days later after Buffalo, and they proceeded to beat Calgary 4-1. But this is a rivalry that's been blossoming more and more between the Kings and the Flames as Matthew Tkachuk and Drew Doughty are going after each other. In the first meeting between these two rivals a couple weeks ago, Doughty and Tkachuk exchanged shots at each other during the game and off ice in post-game interviews. This stems back to problems last year after Doughty stated he had no respect for Tkachuk. Tkachuk has only been in the league for, I think, 3 years now because he just signed his first contract. But Doughty's a veteran, and Matthew Tkachuk's going after this big bad veteran in LA, and he's really sticking it to him. But the Kings got the last laugh that night, dominating a win in their own arena. The two teams play two more times during the regular season, so who knows, and maybe a rough and rowdy playoff series between the two of them. But yeah, it's been an interesting one out west so far this year.
Yeah, so moving back to the Sabres now, this is, I know it's still early, but we've talked about this every week, and it still remains true, so we might as well say it this week.
Yeah.
It really feels different
Right.
with this team with Ralph Kruger now.
This team has been amazing. They've really, changed the locker room, changed everything about themselves, and I really think Ralph Kruger has been a big part of that. He was quoted saying, "I've never seen a bench cheer so much for another line having success." And I mean, good chemistry equals good times. Every sports team knows that, and every sports fan knows that. But this just shows that all these guys are not playing for each other. They're not playing for the names in the back of their jersey, but they're playing for the logo on the front, and they're playing for the fans in the stands. And that's one thing that Ralph Kruger addressed during FanFest this year. I went to that in the beginning of the season, and he said, these fans out, you all, he pointed to all of us, and he said, you all show up every night with the same energy, so why don't we give that energy back to you? And that's exactly what they're doing right now, and I couldn't be happier, and I know every Buffalo fan couldn't be happier.
Yeah, and they haven't lost since our last show, last Monday. They beat the Stars on Columbus Day.
Don't say that now.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said it. I'm going to the game tomorrow, too. I jinxed it now.
Yep. We'll see what they can do.
But, yeah, they beat the Stars 4-0. That was Hutton's first shutout. That was a week ago today. And then they started their West Coast trip. And, oh, wait. Jeez. I completely forgot they did lose to Anaheim.
They lost to
yeah.
Anaheim. That was a rough game. I mean,
all right, good. I didn't jinx them.
Yeah, that was a rough game though. It was 5-2. Really 4-2. It was a kind of a unlucky empty netter for Rasmus Dahlin. He tried to jump up to save the puck from going out of the zone, tipped off his hand and goes into the empty net. But Anaheim played really tough that game. That was a lot of questionable hits, and that was the first real.
Yeah, they started getting pretty dirty.
Yeah, it was the first real rough game the Sabres have had to play this year. But I think they kind of woke up to that and said, okay, well, we're ready now.
And you need a game like that, especially when you're undefeated. You need to play a good team like that that's kind of going to rough you up a bit and kind of knock you back into place and make you realize, what's going on, because you're not going to win every game.
Right, so and it's good to have that in the beginning of the season too. You don't want that to happen like mid-February, because then you
like
have
we've
no
seen
time
for the
to
last
recover.
how many years?
Right, I think this year will be 9 if they don't make it. So mass depression will ensue in Buffalo.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think like I said, if the chemistry keeps up, if Kruger keeps doing what he's doing, keeps these guys in line, it's going to be great. I mean, there's been lots of stories. One of the stories that sticks out to me is all the Swedish players have been getting along great, which is awesome. You have Marcus Johansson, you have Linus Ullmark, Rasmus Dahlin, Victor Olofsson. I mean, all these guys get together with Ullmark. I read a story about this. He hosts this Taco Tuesday night at his house because he said when he first came to the team, him and his wife didn't know anybody. They didn't know where to live. They had no connections anywhere. So they felt really disconnected. But now they're bringing all these Swedish guys in there. They can come chill out at Ullmark's house and talk Swedish and just kind of relax and feel at home, I guess you could say. But it's really nice to see guys like that doing that, like veterans who've been around a while, pulling young guys in and saying, hey, you're welcome here and we want you to be good.
And speaking of Olofsson, or Golofsson as we call him,
Yep.
he set the record for most hit.
He has now the most power play goals scored in his first. It's a really confusing.
It's hard to explain.
It's hard to explain.
His first goals.
All of his career goals so far have been scored on the power play. He has scored 7 goals in his career, and all 7 of them have been on the power play. The only time this has happened before is when there would be 6 goals, and obviously he has 7. I think he actually has 8 now, but the 8th might not have been a power play goal. So nonetheless, he holds an NHL record. That's awesome for a guy. He's 23 years old, only a couple years older than us, and he's an NHL star, and they're talking about him all over their NHL network and everything like that. But it's really cool to see these guys doing what they're doing, and I can't Last time something like this happened was, the 06-07 season. I was only 7 years old. You were only 7 years old. It's awesome. It's a great time to be a Sabres fan. Great time to be a Buffalo fan, really.
Yeah,
With all the success everyone's having.
12 wins between the two teams.
Right.
Before Halloween, that's never. I saw a thing today. 12 wins before Halloween has never happened this early, ever, in 50 years.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and it's really good to see they're supporting each other too. I mean, Josh Allen yesterday in his, I think it was either his post-game interview or his pre-game interview, he at the end of it said "Go Sabres," and he's wearing his own custom 50th anniversary jersey, which is great to see.
It wasn't Saboka.
Yeah, probably a better 17 than the actual 17 on the team. And then Ralph Kruger does the same thing at the end of every post-game show. He says, "Go Bills," and we hope to see him win on Sunday. And they go to each other's games. I mean, that's, like I said, all segment I've said, good chemistry equals good times, and that's what these guys have for sure.
Yeah, and I wouldn't doubt there's probably going to be a lot of Bills at the Sabres game tomorrow night, because the Bills are home for 2 more weeks, and what else are you going to do? Go support your friends,
Why
right?
not? Why not go watch some good hockey? But speaking of other good hockey, I mean, there's been a lot of, big shakeups in the standings. Like we said with Anaheim. Anaheim has been hanging around in the top of the league. I think they're second in the Western Conference right now, or at least in their division. And people have been kind of questioning, are teams like Buffalo, Edmonton, Anaheim, are they going to stick around, or are they just going to fizzle out like they did last year? But, I mean, they've been producing consistently for the last few weeks or so. So I think that with the way they've been playing and the way that these teams are doing it, I think it's going to be a good run for all these teams, all 4 of these teams.
I would love to see, obviously I'd love to see the Sabres remain good, but I would love to see Edmonton have a really good year too, because the 2 guys out of I always forget, 2015, right?
Yes. Yep.
2015 draft, Eichel and McDavid leading their teams. They both have them in first place right now. Both teams are 7-1-1.
That was actually a thing I saw earlier today. It was a meme online, and it said they showed the Sabres and the Oilers in last place 5 years ago, and then it said 5 years later, and it shows us in first place and second place. So that's really cool to see both teams doing that and bouncing back like that. But that 2015 draft class, like we've always said, keeps continuing to produce. Another one of those was David Pastrnak. I mean, the Sabres kind of passed up on him. They could have actually had David Pastrnak. A couple draft picks before him, I can't remember who they took, but he's not in the NHL now, and he's not putting up 9 points in 4 games like David Pasternak's been doing. But it's just crazy to see how 1 year of draft, like one draft year, can change an entire league, not just an entire team.
Yeah, and real quick before we hit the break, quick look at the standings here. First in the Eastern Conference, the Metropolitan Division. I still get weirded out with this. I'm used to the 8 teams that they always used to do.
They always did that. They did that weird reshuffle.
Yeah, so now in the Metropolitan Division, Washington, Pittsburgh, Carolina lead that. In the Atlantic, Buffalo, Boston, Toronto are the 3 teams leading right now. And then in the wild card as of now are the Islanders and Canadiens with 10 points. And then there's a whole cluster of teams right behind them. So obviously it's still early, but just giving you a look at what the standings look like. And then in the West, the Central has Colorado, Winnipeg, and Nashville. Pacific, Edmonton, Anaheim, and Vegas. And the wild card, Calgary, Vancouver, and another whole cluster of teams.
It's going to be an interesting run to the playoffs this year.
Oh, yeah. Real quick prediction for Sabres game tomorrow night.
I don't do predictions. I'll jinx it. I don't do predictions.
Okay, I would give a prediction, but you're scaring me that I'm going to jinx it now. So
I'm
with
very
that,
superstitious.
Go Sabres. Thanks for coming on.
Yep, thanks.
And Meyer will be on in a couple minutes. NBA starts tomorrow, too. What a time. October, greatest sports month of the year.
I'll be right back. Hi. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
It's me, Artie. Come see what I collected from the Creative Galaxy in my idea box.
Transform your world.
Will you help me make art?
Before you throw it away,
Hey, I have an idea.
think outside the box.
Go be amazing!
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
Welcome to the NBA segment now. We haven't had this since the first show, as we're finally in the NBA season. This is Meyer Mikulski. Glad to have you on. And Meyer, just like the World Series that starts tomorrow, NBA season starts too.
Yep.
Got two big games here, Pelicans and Raptors and Lakers Clippers.
So the Pelicans-Raptors game for tomorrow was supposed to be Zion Williamson's first game. For those of you who don't know who Zion Williamson is, he was the most anticipated incoming rookie since LeBron James. Unfortunately, he is out 6 to 8 weeks with a torn right meniscus. And this knee issue, it's been a major concern with him since he came out of Duke, mainly because of his 6'6", 285-pound frame. And in the future, he will have to trim down if he wants to last long in the NBA. As for the Raptors, it's time for them to raise their banner after defeating Golden State in the NBA Finals 4 games to 1. With Kawhi Leonard gone, they look to feature Pascal Siakam more, as he showed flashes of what he can do as a first option in the finals. He averaged just under 20 points. And speaking of Siakam, they recently gave him a max extension for 4 years, $130 million, which is well deserved after winning Most Improved and a championship to go along with that.
$130 million. That's insane. And Siakam isn't even in that top tier of players. He's good, but he's not like a superstar. He's getting $130 million. It's crazy. But going back to the Pelicans, the Williamson injury is obviously huge news, but they built up their team so much. I think they're still going to be okay because they got so much back.
Yeah, they still have
for
guys
Anthony
that can
Davis. I mean, looking at their depth chart here, Lonzo Ball, Drew Holiday, J.J. Redick, Josh Hart, Brandon Ingram, E'Twaun Moore, Darius Miller, Williamson when he's healthy, Derek Favors they have now, Jahlil Okafor. I mean, they're secretly stacked, I would say.
Yeah, their only issue really is three-point shooting outside of J.J. Redick and E'Twaun Moore.
So going back to the Raptors now, obviously they lost Kawhi. He's with the Clippers now. And do you think the Raptors are they probably will have a setback, but how big of a setback do you think they will have now that they don't have Kawhi?
Since it's the East, it won't be that big of a setback. But they are lacking at the wing. Like, who's really starting? Like, Stanley Johnson or OG Anunoby? And how good can they be?
Yeah, they still have a lot of solid pieces. They have Kyle Lowry, Marc Gasol, Danny Green's in L.A. now.
Yeah.
The other L.A. He joined LeBron out in L.A. But they still, I'm drawing a blank here at all the depth charts. I'm pulling up the depth chart, but they still have a solid team. So, okay, here we go. So it's Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet, and then Patrick McCaw. Then Norman Powell is the starting shooting guard. So that's obviously a setback.
But he can play. He showed that in the finals.
Yeah. And then, yeah, Stanley Johnson, Anunoby, Malcolm Miller, Siakam, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, Marcus Gasol, Serge Ibaka. That was the other one, the big one I couldn't think of. But losing Danny Green and Kawhi, that's going to hurt. But I think they still have enough solid pieces to, I don't want to say make a run, but they're still going to be good this year.
And going back to the matchup, each team split the season series last year in their 2 matchups against each other. And my prediction is Raptors over Pelicans. Since the Raptors are defending champions, I feel like they'll be disciplined enough not to let their emotions get the best of them. What are your thoughts, Kevin? What do you predict?
Yeah, opening up at home, raising the banner. I like the Raptors in this one. So the second game we have tomorrow night, Lakers-Clippers, a highly anticipated matchup with LeBron and Kawhi now and all the other stars that are out there. So what do you think about this game?
Unfortunately, there won't be any Paul George. He's expected to miss the first 10 weeks of the season. First 10 games, excuse me. But I believe this is a teaser for the Western Conference Finals. What are your thoughts, Kevin?
Yeah, a lot of people have Lakers-Clippers, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because there are a lot of good teams out west.
Yes.
Denver, Portland,
Utah,
yeah.
Houston.
You never know with Houston. You never know with who?
Portland.
Yeah, I said them. You never know with San Antonio and Dallas with Luka Doncic and Porzingis now. It's going to be good. The West is so good.
And now, it's also the battle of LeBron versus Kawhi. Like, who's really the best player in the NBA? Last season, a lot of people said Kawhi Leonard. But for me, I still believe LeBron. But LeBron wasn't on the court enough to defend himself. But we'll see. And each team split the season series last season, winning 2 games apiece. Each game between these 2 teams were respectively close, and fans should expect more of the same this year. So what are your predictions for this game, Kevin?
I'm going to take the Lakers.
Same.
I think a key to the Lakers team this year is that LeBron had 2 extra months to recover from the season and heal and rest. Because every year he's been in the finals for 8 years in a row?
Yep.
And for once he was actually at home on his couch, or wherever he was, and watching the Warriors and the Raptors. So he's going to be so well rested. I think the Lakers are going to come out to a really hot start to this season.
So for tomorrow's games, we have Wednesday's games. We have the Boston Celtics versus the Philadelphia 76ers and the Portland Trail Blazers versus the Denver Nuggets. So for the Celtics and the Sixers, each team has a new look to them. Al Horford will face his former team for the first time right off the bat. In my opinion, both teams are worse than they were last season due to their lack of depth and consistency on their respective benches. Last season, Boston dominated Philadelphia, winning the season series 3-1. All but one of the games went down to the wire. But it seemed like Boston had a psychological advantage over Philly the past couple of seasons. But now that Boston lost a couple of key guys, such as Al Horford, it's time for Philly to grow up. Boston recently gave Jaylen Brown a 4-year, $115 million extension, which means Hayward could be the odd man out, since they would have to extend Tatum next year. My prediction is that Philly will beat Boston due to Boston's losses, and Philly will look to pounce on them all season. What are your thoughts, Kevin?
I'm going to take Boston here. I think every year they have a solid team. And now you add Kemba Walker. You replace him replace Kyrie with Kemba. I think the Celtics, I don't think they're going to have too big of a setback. So that's going to do it for this week. It's a quick segment. I wish we could talk more NBA. But there's going to be a lot to talk about next week as we'll be in full swing a week from now. So with that, tune back in next week, a week from now, same time, same place, as we will have another episode of Sports Hour. So for Meyer Mikulski, I'm Kevin Syracuse. You've been watching WNYF TV Sports Hour. Thank you, and go Bills.